Alright, good morning-ish, afternoon-ish. This is Adam Sturch broadcasting from the Mushroom Mansion Taos, New Mexico, working on oil painting Anne Frank's stairway. I think I've called it Anne Frank's staircase or other things, but stairway is what I'm settling on. And today, we're going to do a very simple step to start. I'm going to have the light at the top remain very intense, blending into a very cold turquoise blue, soft glow that will be covering all of these figures and sort of keeping it within this space. And then I'll have maybe some rays coming down with white to intensify the glow at the top before we start carving out the figures with a bit more detail. But simple step for the moment, just the turquoise.
Trump winning the presidency. In one online post, he referenced Trump's friendship with the deceased convicted sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein, writing, quote, "Time to drop the really big bomb. Real Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That's the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day, DJT!" Exclamation point. Musk wrote. Trump accused Musk of going crazy after an electric vehicle tax credit was removed from the House budget bill. In one post, Trump wrote, quote, "The easiest way to save money in our budget, billions and billions of dollars, is to terminate Elon's governmental subsidies and contracts. I was always surprised that Biden didn't do it." Trump wrote. On Thursday, shares of Tesla fell 14% before rebounding. We'll have more on this story after headlines. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has acknowledged his government has been arming a criminal gang in Gaza that's repeatedly been accused of looting humanitarian aid trucks. This comes as the new shadowy U.S.-Israeli-backed aid operation known as the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation has suspended aid deliveries again, despite starvation spreading in Gaza. Some aid was briefly distributed Thursday. Palestinians describe risking their lives to receive a small portion of food aid.
We died inside. We died. We died. We can't. All this to get food for our children. I got this, a bit of flour, a bit of lentils, and 2 packs of pasta. We died. They made us pass at the peak of the heat and they killed us. We can't walk. We can't go on.
The UN is warning acute malnutrition among Gaza's young children has soared in recent months, with more than 2,700 Palestinians under the age of 5 diagnosed. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization has called for a halt to what it calls the relentless and systematic decimation of hospitals in Gaza, unquote. Meanwhile, a 4th journalist has died following Israel's attack on the Al-Afe Baptist Hospital. Ahmed Kharja, who worked with Al Arabiya, is the 226th journalist killed in Gaza since 2023. Lebanon's accusing Israel of violating the ceasefire by bombing Beirut's southern suburbs on Thursday night. The attack came on the eve of Eid al-Adha holiday. It marked the 4th time Israel's attacked the Lebanese capital since the November ceasefire began. In southern France, dock workers at a port outside Marseille have refused to move military cargo bound for Israel to protest the Netanyahu government's assault on Gaza. The Secretary General of France's Trade Union Federation told reporters, quote, "It is unacceptable that union dock workers should be the ones forced to uphold the fundamental principles of international law and French values. The government must immediately block all arms deliveries to the state of Israel," unquote. On Capitol Hill, nearly 24 Congress members have co-sponsored a bill that would withhold offensive weapons from Israel. The Block the Bombs Act seeks to cut off the flow of arms that violate international law and humanitarian norms. This is Washington State Democrat Pramila Jayapal, leader of the Congressional Progressive Caucus.
How many more children will we watch burned in flames? How much more carnage do we have to witness as the Netanyahu government uses U.S. taxpayer-funded weapons to kill Palestinians with impunity and to run roughshod over the Geneva Conventions and our own U.S. laws? How many more American-made bombs must we watch hitting hospitals, schools, shelters, indiscriminately killing aid workers, civilians, women, babies? How many more entire communities do we have to watch razed to the ground. This has to end. It is an affront to human dignity, to our collective conscience.
Congressmember Pramila Jayapal is one of the leaders of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has imposed sanctions on 4 judges at the International Criminal Court. It's the latest move by the U.S. to retaliate against the Hague-based court after it issued arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant for crimes against humanity and war crimes in Gaza.
You think?
Meanwhile, Drop Site News reports a leaked State Department memo reveals the Trump administration's considering a radical restructuring of the agency that would see the consolidation or elimination of over 3,400 U.S.-based staff positions, as well as entire bureaus dedicated to conflict resolution, women's rights, public diplomacy, and humanitarian coordination. President Trump's withdrawn his nomination of Jared Isaacman to lead NASA. Isaacman's a billionaire private astronaut, close associate of Elon Musk, who's twice flown aboard SpaceX's Dragon spacecraft. His nomination had been approved by the Senate Commerce Committee, and the full Senate was set to vote on it in the coming days. This comes as the White House has proposed cutting NASA's budget by 1/4, with science programs cut nearly in half, which would lead to the cancellation of dozens of missions and thousands of layoffs. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem has signed waivers to speed construction of 36 miles of new border wall in Arizona and New Mexico. In a statement, the department said Noem was exercising her authority to waive environmental laws, including the National Environmental Policy Act. Meanwhile, a Peruvian woman who was detained by U.S. Army soldiers and arrested by a Border Patrol agent in West Texas May 12th has been acquitted of illegally entering a national defense area. Adley Vanessa de la Cruz Alvarez already faces deportation, but could have received a prison term of up to 18 months for entering the narrow strip of land along the U.S.-Mexico border that President Trump recently transferred to the military. Nearly a dozen ICE agents have been left stranded alongside a group of 8 deportees in a converted shipping container at a U.S. military base in Djibouti. That's according to an extraordinary document filed in federal court Thursday by an ICE official who writes, agents and their prisoners face risks from disease, extreme heat, poor air quality, and warnings of potential rocket attacks on the base of Yemen's Houthi fighters. The deportees arrived in Djibouti aboard a U.S. deportation flight after a federal judge ruled they could not be transferred to South Sudan, a nation on the brink of civil war, to which they are not citizens. Rather than return the deportees to the U.S. to reopen their cases, they were rerouted to Djibouti. In Massachusetts, a federal judge Thursday ordered the release of the Milford High School honors student Marcelo Gomez da Silva. Last week, immigration agents arrested the 18-year-old on his way to volleyball practice. Gomez was able to reunite with his family and friends in an emotional scene after his release on $2,000 bond. He told reporters he was confined to a windowless room, holding dozens of men with no access to the outdoors, no privacy, and no shower for the entire 6 days he was jailed.
She's like, do you know why you're arrested? And I said, no, I don't. She said, because you overstayed your visa. You came here in 2013, and in 2015 you overstayed it. And I told her, I was like, ma'am, I was 7 years old. Like, I don't know nothing about that stuff. Like, I don't understand how it works.
After Marcelo was detained on Saturday, on Sunday there was graduation. He was supposed to be in the band in which he plays. After graduation, the students marched in their gowns to Town Hall to protest his detention. For the first time, the Trump administration's returned a wrongly deported immigrant. A Guatemalan man identified in court filings as OCG was returned to the U.S. on Wednesday following a federal judge's order to take all immediate steps to reverse his deportation to Guatemala, where he was previously held for ransom and rape. A new lawsuit alleges Colorado Governor Jared Polis collaborated with the Trump administration after it issued a secret subpoena to force Colorado officials to turn over personal information on residents sponsoring unaccompanied migrant children. According to the lawsuit, Governor Polis directed his staff to comply with the order, even though he had signed a law explicitly prohibiting such cooperation. In more news from Colorado, a federal judge Wednesday ordered the Trump administration to immediately halt deportation proceedings against the family of the Egyptian man charged in Sunday's firebombing attack in Boulder, which injured 12 people at a protest in support of Israeli hostages. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem personally announced the deportation proceedings in a video she shared on social media earlier this week.
We're also investigating to what extent his family knew about this horrific attack, if they had any knowledge of it, or if they provided support to it.
Attorneys for the wife of Mohammed Sabri Soliman and their 5 children wrote in a successful lawsuit challenging their deportation, quote, "It's patently unlawful to punish individuals for the crimes of their relatives," unquote. Dozens of attorneys, law school professors, and retired Florida Supreme Court justices have filed an ethics complaint against U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi with the Florida Bar Association, accusing her of serious professional misconduct. The complaint says Bondi threatened Justice Department lawyers with discipline or termination if they failed to, quote, "zealously pursue the president's political objectives," unquote. Attorney General Bondi has played a central role in the firings and resignations of numerous government lawyers during her 4 months leading the Justice Department. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. We begin today's show with the escalating feud between President Trump and Elon Musk, the world's richest man, who up until just recently was a top presidential advisor and Trump's top political benefactor. The fight could have broad implications for Trump's presidency, the Republican Party, and many government programs, including NASA, that rely on technology from Musk's various companies. The feud became public Tuesday when Musk called Trump's so-called big, beautiful budget bill a disgusting abomination because it'll increase the federal deficit by $2.5 trillion. The tension then escalated considerably on Thursday. During a meeting with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, a reporter asked Trump about Musk's comment. This is part of his response.
But I'm very disappointed because Elon knew the inner workings of this bill better than almost anybody sitting here, better than you people. He knew everything about it. He had no problem with it. All of a sudden he had a problem, and he only developed the problem when he found out that we're going to have to cut the EV mandate, because that's billions and billions of dollars, and it really is unfair. He knew it better than almost anybody, and he never had a problem until right after he left. And if you saw the statements he made about me, which I'm sure you can get it's very fresh on tape, he said the most beautiful things about me. And he hasn't said bad about me personally, but I'm sure that'll be next. But I'm very disappointed in Elon. I've helped Elon a lot.
The feud then spilled into social media, with the 2 billionaires launching personal attacks on their own social media platforms. Musk on X and Trump on Truth Social. At 2:37 p.m. Thursday, Trump wrote, "Elon was wearing thin. I asked him to leave. I took away his EV mandate that forced everyone to buy electric cars that nobody else wanted, that he knew for months I was going to do, and he just went crazy," unquote. At 3:10 p.m., Musk wrote, quote, "Time to drop the really big bomb. Real Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That's the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day, DJT." Then Trump wrote, "The easiest way to save money in our budget, billions and billions of dollars, is to terminate Elon's governmental subsidies and contracts. I was always surprised Biden didn't do it," Trump said. Musk responded by threatening to decommission the Dragon spacecraft used by NASA. Musk also appeared to back the impeachment of Trump and took credit for Trump winning the presidency. Trump ally Steve Bannon went further, calling for Musk to be investigated and deported. He also called for Trump to seize Musk's company, SpaceX. To talk more about the fracturing of the Trump-Musk relationship and what this could mean for the Republican Party, we're joined by Quinn Slobodian, professor of international history at Boston University, working on a book about Elon Musk titled Muskism. He is author of Hayek's Bastards, Race, Gold, IQ, and the Capitalism of the Far Right, as well as Crack-Up Capitalism, Market Radicals, and the Dream of a World Without Democracy. Professor Slobodian, welcome back to Democracy Now! Were you shocked by what you saw happen yesterday? I mean, who knows? They could be holding a joint news conference soon and announce they're back in love.
Yeah, I mean, they are people who always have their eye on the bottom line, but they also are obviously titanically sized egos, and I think that more than anything, this is just a sign of how dangerous it is to put, billions of dollars, even the lives of astronauts, the whole future of the American economy and the political scene in the hands of two sole human beings.
When you said threaten the lives of astronauts, explain.
Well, the Dragon unit that you mentioned is the only way for the astronauts in the International Space Station to get to
I'll
and
try
from
and keep from
where they are
vomiting
now.
up my
So were
coffee
you
and
to
cigarettes
decommission it,
for
it might literally
breakfast
mean
over
that they
this
would be stranded
ridiculous
out there,
story.
kind of gravity style.
I'm gonna watch this dry.
So this is just one
But
of
that's it for the moment.
examples
As you
of
can see,
many
it's a
of
nice
the
glowing sort of
offloading
turquoise-ish
core government
electric blue
functions
blaze
onto
emanating from the
private
upper part of the
service providers
stairs.
that Elon
I
Musk
think I'm
has
going to
been
let that
so
dry
masterful
before I start
at
carving in
playing
the
that we
figures
feel,
with more
and more
depth.
exposed to from
But I'm liking it so far. So that's it for the
the
moment.
use of
Thanks for
Starlink
watching. That's Adam
satellites
Sturch
in
broadcasting from the
field of
Mushroom
battle
Mansion
in the
Taos, New
Ukraine
Mexico,
to
working
the
on
use
oil
of the
painting
same
and
internet
Frank
connection
Stairway.
as leverage
Have a
in
good
his
day.
battle